understanding your audience and understanding what you have to offer, and then finding the brands that can benefit from what you have to offer. And then you have your sponsorship proposal ready, and you solicit those sponsors.
Hello, my lovely ladies. Welcome to another episode of Radiant Women. Thank you for being here with me today, and I am very thankful for our next guest that's coming on. Her name is Roberta, and she is going to talk about a very interesting topic which I am excited about. She's the author of How to Secure Sponsors Successfully, an event sponsorship consultant. I know, this is so exciting. With more than 2 decades of experience in event sponsorship, from planning sponsored events to securing sponsors, Roberta shares, she's going to share with us her experience, insights, and skills to help for-profits and non-for-profits get funding for their events through securing sponsors. Now, I know that we could all do with a lot more funding, and when I spoke to Roberta offline, we talked about, who can this be applied to, and it can be applied to everyone. So this is going to be a great episode. Roberta, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't you tell us, just to start off with, a little bit about, give us a little bit more details about what you do and how did you come to it?
Sure. I started out in the event sponsorship industry through planning events for myself, actually, for my business. So in the late 90s, while attending college, working as an account exec and managing a celebrity calendar project, and at the school, I noticed that the students there wanted to get into the entertainment industry, but did not want to sleep their way into the industry. So the calendar, the connections that I made from the calendar, I leveraged that into a fashion show and a seminar. And not knowing anything about planning events, I didn't realize that I needed funding for those events. And when I realized, it costs money to plan these events, that's when I started to look for money. The world of sponsorship opened up to me, and I started to bring in sponsors. And I think it has a lot to do with my background in sales, knowing how to sell, products. And so when I went to the companies asking them for money, at first, Vanja, I was using the wrong word. Right. And that, then someone somewhere, I guess, I don't know if it's something said to me, hey, sponsorship. So I changed up my language, and I was able to get the money and get the products and services from companies. And that's pretty much I was able to secure sponsors, convert friends into sponsors.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Tell me about, so you kind of, I guess, sort of stumbled on this. But when we're talking about sponsors, in my head, and I think a lot of people's head, we're thinking about like crazy big events, that, we go to, that's usually community organized or something like that. But even for those events that you have done in the beginning, does it have to be a big thing?
No, when I started, remember, I was just this nobody. No one knew me. It was just something that I wanted to do to help that audience, the students who were, in the different school clubs, right? So it was just something I was passionate about, meaning that I don't believe you need to sleep your way into an industry. I don't believe you need to do anything that you don't want to do to get to the next level. I mean, anything. Of course, sometimes you need to do certain things, but sleeping your way in, I just don't believe it should be it shouldn't be a requirement to become a model or to become a talent. I don't see it. So I was just this, the event was a no brand. It wasn't anything, but it did solve a problem and it did have an audience. So it doesn't matter if it's the first time, and I've said this in my book, that it doesn't matter if you are NASCAR. And then the first time NASCAR secured a sponsor was their first time. The first time I secured a sponsor was my first time. So it does not matter. I also had my real estate course, for example, that was sponsored by a real estate agent. So it doesn't matter if the audience is just one, thousands, millions. It does not matter. What matters is that you understand your event purpose, know why you're planning this event, know what you're expecting out from the event. Like for me, the purpose was to get the talents in front of industry decision makers. The outcome of it was for them to network with them. And then the next thing is to know your audience. Who is your target audience? Mine was upcoming models and talents, people in that community who wore a certain type of brand, who needed certain things. So you need to understand your audience. And then I targeted and also the next thing, they were all in college. So I targeted companies, I targeted brands that resonate with that target audience. So that includes record labels, had them as sponsors. That includes Kinko's. Kinko's used to print material. And I said to Kinko's, hey, I have an audience, college students, they could come to you and print their, whatever it is that they need to print at your shop, right? So it just made sense, to get the companies that can actually benefit from the event, whether it is they can benefit through sales, whether they can benefit through building a relationship or reconnecting with the audience. It can be so many different reasons. I can go on and on with different reasons, but the sponsor will definitely need to gain something from it. It needs to be a win-win.
Right. So it has to be something essentially that you can offer to the sponsor. And I don't necessarily mean as in it could be just a doorway to their audience. So, presenting something to their audience so that I guess having that audience in common helps, because that's all what we want. Even as business owners, we want to be in front of the right people. So then tell me, does this event sponsorship, if we're seeking sponsorship, does it apply only to events? So do we have to throw on something for it to apply, or, how else can we utilize, this tool?
Right. So that's a good question. Google defines event as anything of importance. Anything, it just means that, whether it's a birthday party, whether it's my course, my real estate course, whether it's a project, whether it's a podcast, whether it's getting into the metaverse, like anything, weddings, galas, expos, convention, anything, an invention, anything can be sponsored, because sponsors really mean supported. So anything can be supported, right? And getting technical with the sponsorship is just, again, it's a give and take, and you must be in front of your target audience, because if you are not, then it comes in like placing an advertisement. Right. For example, the Super Bowl, I like to say this one, the Super Bowl had different type of sponsors there. They had Hallmark. Hallmark is a company that makes cards, and they sell, different things. And then they had a chocolate company. Well, they sell chocolate. But when you compare the two to the Super Bowl, the ideal sponsor or the one that looks like the sponsor, is the Hallmark, because everyone in that audience can use that Hallmark, versus eating the chocolate. Somebody might be allergic to chocolate, they might not like chocolate, but everyone can use a hallmark. And then of course you provide different type of activities to connect the audience with that with the sponsor. So anything that you can think of, even a cyclist out in Europe somewhere, her fiance was a cyclist and
Mhm.
he passed away during that time, and she got sponsors to fund his memorial. So anything that you can think of, because there are brands that target cyclists. They want to be there. They want to be up close and show that I'm supporting this, and people will come back and support them. So any type of event that you can think of can be sponsored.
Wow. Okay. So basically anyone who is in any type of business can utilize this, because it can. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely, because every business has an audience,
Yeah.
right? No one goes into business that I'm aware of that doesn't have an audience.
Yeah.
So you have an audience, that means that there is a product or service for that, right? If not, this somewhere is a void. But every business, every show, everything, it has an audience. So now the work comes in. Let's find out where that brand is that can connect with my audience, right? And then
Right.
there's also something that, now I mentioned you need to be in front of your pure demographic, right? Here's the thing: if you were to go into a mass audience like the Olympics, and we find sponsors and we find different type of demographics within that event, then you can pull out, if you want to sponsor the entire event, I mean, fine, but here's the thing: you still need to pull out your niche within that event. So if you are a brand that let's say McDonald's was a sponsor at the Olympics, right? They still needed, it's only a certain amount, a certain number of people who eat McDonald's. So they still
Mm.
need to latch on to those fast food eaters. They still need to penetrate that market and not focus on the entire audience, because they are wasting their money, they're wasting their time. Not everyone wants to eat McDonald's, so you then need to focus on that. Another thing too, you can offer the sponsor, instead of your audience, you can give them something that's going on behind the scene, right? Give them access to something that they want, right? So that's another way that you can do it. So you might see a sponsor, you might see a brand at an event, and you're like, well, what are they doing there, right?
Mm.
When I did my children's fashion show, the people, you see Rite Aid, and it's like, why is Rite Aid there? Rite Aid is a pharmaceutical company, but Rite Aid was there because Rite Aid sells different products that suits the entire family. So they need
Right.
access to say, well, we're not only a pharmaceutical company. If you need birthday cards, if you need that chocolate, if you need anything that the community needs, we actually sell that. So
Mm.
going back to a brand as well, you can actually get into you can offer them something like meet the CEOs, meet the women. You have access to all of the women in my podcast or my email list, right? So sometimes the audience that are listening might not be able to benefit from that sponsor, but all the women who you have access to can benefit from that sponsor, like someone who does business taxes. A listener might not necessarily need that because they're not there as yet, but all
Yeah.
of the women who have their businesses, they, including yourself, might need someone to do their taxes or something like that.
Right. Okay. So I guess then, to break it down and to understand it, step one is about really understanding your audience, so then you know what you are pitching or what you can offer. So again, the step two in my head would be to find a sponsor. So how do we do that? Do you have any tactics in terms of how to find the best sponsor for whatever it is that we're doing?
Yeah, sure. So the first thing that I do is look for brands that the audience are already using, something that they need.
Yeah.
I also look for where they are located. Like currently, I'm working with someone now, and believe it or not, sometimes I do forget, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going after all these corporate brands, and I've been saying for many years, start with local as well,
Mm.
right? The local brands, once, of course, they can benefit, not just because they are in your community, that makes them an ideal sponsor. Of course, you need to share the same type of audience, going back to that, or offer them something really, really that they need. So starting with the businesses that are surrounding
Hmm.
my client. So if the pitch would be something like, we are in the same community. Again, going back, I must say that the companies that I target can benefit from becoming a sponsor. So I would say something like, we're in the same community, you're in the same community with my audience. Let's use the event with my client. Let's use the sponsorship to then send traffic over to you, rather than the competitor that's like 4 blocks away from you, right? So that's one way, starting local. One thing with corporate, what I am I am realizing is the process. It takes much longer. So
Mm.
do not wait until the last minute to approach the sponsorship process, right?
Right.
Give yourself, for budgets, I would say 4-figure budgets, smaller budgets, give yourself 6 months.
Hmm.
Really, give yourself 6 months. You could do it faster, yes, if you know the right person and the right language and what to say. Yes, you can do it much faster. With larger budgets, with approaching corporate brands, now with AI, you go through that. That's one. Then they send you
Mm.
over to their website. And then the second thing, sometimes you're getting the gatekeepers that, which just recently happened to me. I guess I called too much, and then the person, I guess working from home now, you have call ID, you know who's calling. And
Yeah.
then I call, and the person puts me on this loud hold, like the phone is off the hook, and I'm hearing all this stuff, that's happening, because people are getting, I'm doing my job, right? Following
Mm.
up, but then the other person in the line thinks that I'm calling to ask for a hands out for
Yeah.
a right, and she doesn't understand I'm calling to bring value to the business, and it's an ideal sponsor, because everyone at my client's event can actually use that product from the company that the company offers, the company that I'm calling. And so you find your sponsors by the products that the audience is using. Find your sponsors by also, let's think of this crossover. This one is a little bit tricky, but I'm sure I'm sure that the audience will get this. Here is this. So let's say there is a dye for hair that's made for men. Let's just say that.
Mhm.
Then if you see a product and you say, wow, this can be used with a different demographic, right? Then you will approach that brand and say, hey, this dye, I know you made it for men, but it can also be used for women. I have women who will use this product, right? So you look for solutions, which brands right have those solutions, and you also look for the connection, which brands will connect best with my audience.
Right. Okay. So we're starting off with so really understanding our audience, finding, or I think actually before we find the sponsor, it sounds like what we also need to understand is what is that win-win situation? What can we offer? What can we make it enticing so that the sponsors do say yes? And then I guess it's about finding the sponsors. And again, it goes back to that audience and figuring out what that audience needs. And then, I guess then it's an easier sell because you have what they need.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Starting within first, right? So what's my event about? Right? Why am I doing this event? And then what do I expect from out of my event? Because you want to start always with your event. It's your event. Whether you never ever get a sponsor or not, this is just the basic. What's my event about? And what's my event's purpose, and what's my event expected outcome?
Yeah.
Right. When you know those two, it also helps you to start to think about what type of sponsor. But here's the thing: the third thing is who's my audience, right? What's my audience about? Who are they? Now that's when you actually will know for sure who you want to target as sponsors. First thing, event's purpose. Second thing, event expected outcome. Third thing is who is my event audience.
Yep.
Right. And so your question, I wanted to get into the steps, right? So I think so the next thing is your question was, just remind me, please.
I was just sort of making sure that we captured sort of the steps that we're meant to take as such to start our journey on getting a sponsor.
Okay, got it. All right, so those are the 3 steps. Now, after that, after you find out who your audience, that's the third one, right? Mm-hmm. The fourth one is then to make a list of brands that you want to convert into your sponsors. Make a list of those sponsors, right? And then the next step is to start to find out what value. So I think I might have missed a step. I need to put these things into step. What you find out the value that you have to offer. So that's a big one that I believe that I missed. Events purpose, events expected outcome. What it is, the audience is third, and then the fourth thing is what value do I have to offer to my sponsor, right? What value do I have to offer? This event that I'm having, what's the value? I know the value is the audience. That's the first value for sure. And then what can I offer? How can I connect a brand with my audience? Can I offer the sponsor the visibility? Can I offer them branding? What does my event have to offer, right? And then that's when you look for the brands. And the next step would be to have a sponsorship proposal ready. And then you start to go after the sponsors. And I like which I have to make a list of these things because I get it. It's like I know it, and then I need to actually put those in a list. So that's what I will do. So I would say the first step is, go ahead. The first step is.
The first step is 100%. So understand what your event is, and understanding your audience.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the overview pretty much of it. Understanding your event, what your event is, the outcome, including the outcome, understanding your audience, and understanding what you have to offer, and then finding the brands that can benefit from what you have to offer. And then you have your sponsorship proposal ready. and you solicit those sponsors. Actually, I do have a video too that I made many years ago that goes through the steps, and I need to remember it. It's 9 steps what to do to attract sponsors, and that you'll find that on YouTube.
Okay, well, that's actually quite a good thing to look at, because if it can help us or guide us where we want to go. So then once we go through these steps and we are reaching out to sponsors, sorry, can you give us some do's and don'ts when we are reaching out to help us have that win or get us ahead a little bit?
Okay, so do's and don'ts. Do's. Let's go with the do's. The do's is for sure, make sure that you are coming from a place of value.
Mm-hmm.
When you come from a place of value, you know that when someone hangs up the phone on you, when someone rejects you, when someone does whatever, when you keep hearing all these no's, right? You might feel bad about it. Once you're coming from a place of value, you know that you're doing something right, and you're going to continue that. So come from, understanding why you want that brand to become your sponsor. So that's a do. On the opposite side of that is don't try to force anyone to believe to see it your way.
Mm-hmm.
Share with them, but don't force it, because sometimes a sponsor cannot afford the sponsorship. Sometimes something is going on behind the scenes that we don't know about, that's causing them to say no. Sometimes the sponsor is just not into you. So don't force it. Another do is to have a list. Just don't have one sponsor. Have a list of sponsors, right? Another do, I would go on the other side of okay, so another do is to have a list of sponsors. Let's see if I have a don't for that. Don't call them at the last minute. Don't wait until the last minute, right? That's a good one. Don't wait until the last minute to call sponsors, because sometimes you have to go through the process. The AI, the gatekeepers, get into the decision making, get them to answer. Might be the holidays, they're off, so don't wait until the last minute. And let's see if I could do another do. I would say do stay consistent. Do follow up, right? And do follow up for sure, because other people are calling them to become sponsors. So follow up is important, and that's one of the 9 steps. Actually, that's one of the 9 steps in the video. And then the other part of that is a don't. Can I give for a last don't? It's like, don't get discouraged. Like, don't give up. Just trust the process. It's like with anything else, it takes time. It's not an overnight get rich quick scheme. I've been doing this for a very long time, as mentioned, and I still have to wait. I've done so much, I didn't even remember. I'm telling you that I have to make a list, and I don't even remember that I already made the list, because I've been doing it for such a long time. But yeah, so don't ever give up. I remember when I started, it's just rejection. I faced rejections, the rejections. And here's another do, which is so important, that got me from the rejections to the success, to the yes, is understanding sponsorship. That's a big one. Understanding it, right? Understanding how it works. Because when I started, I faced the rejections because I used the wrong word. I wasn't aware of sponsorship at the time. So understanding it. So that's a big do, which on the other end of that is don't use the wrong terms. Don't say that you're asking for a donation. Don't say that you right. So
Yes.
that's it. And I think I have one more do for you. And I think that was the initial one, which is like do provide value to these
Mhm.
sponsors and don't, ask for more and give them less. And those are
Right.
just things at the top of my head.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And those are all important things to remember when we are approaching, kind of to go back over this and go, okay, am I doing that? Because that, whether we're doing it for clients or whether we're doing it for sponsorship, we always need to think about how we can add value. So can you tell us about, in terms of, so if we're seeking out sponsors, how you can help us? What you specifically, how do you work with your clients to get them sponsorships?
Great. So I what I do is the teaching, right?
Right.
I teach. I have my books, How to Secure Sponsors Successfully. So that's where I went back to my grassroots, where I started from. Uh, when I learned about sponsorship, I thought it was just fair to share it with others. Just like when the students didn't want to sleep their way into the industry, I went out to plan an event, and then I found the world of sponsorship. And just
Mm.
like with planning the events, it's the same thing with like sponsorship. I just want to, people to have access to information, in this case, to funding for events that they are passionate about. I was passionate about that. So I plan the events. People out here are passionate about so many different things, but they just need the funding, right? So whether it's few $100 or a few $1,000 or millions of dollars, right? There are companies that will fund it. Just show them the value that you provide, and that's where I stand on the education part of it, which is understanding it, knowing how to communicate with sponsors, and knowing how to sell to sponsors. And selling is not bad, it's just really creating a really dynamite sponsorship proposal to give to them that shows them the win-win. So that's how I help my clients. Through the education part of it, the teaching
Right.
part, right? So that comes with the books, and then I'm looking to create classes as well, like where you can take classes online.
Yeah. And that's such an important thing because to me, until we had a chat, I really didn't understand much about sponsorships. For me, of course, it was things like, Super Bowl and those big TV events where, I knew they had sponsors, but I didn't realize, little old us could actually get someone to participate in that event and essentially make it better. So I will, what I'll do is we'll link all of your social media and things like that into descriptions wherever you're listening to this. And we'll also link that video that we were talking about with the 9 steps. So we'll dig
Yes.
it up. But if anyone's just listening and doesn't have time to stop and click on wherever, where can we find more information about all of this?
Yes, definitely events and sponsors.com. And then I am in the works of launching Roberta Vigilance.com. That's Roberta Vigilance.com. My first and last name.com.
Yeah.
So I'm working on that so I can just focus on the teaching of it. My business, events and sponsors.com, writes, edits, and reviews sponsorship proposal. That's what the business does. For me, I just want to focus on the teaching part of things. So RobertaVigilance.com should be available sometime soon, in a couple of weeks, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing all the information with me. I know my audience, as I have as well, will find it very, very valuable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say one more thing, please. I would like to add one more thing, which is that we the little people, we are the ones who are mighty, right? We are the
Mm.
ones who have the influence and the connection with our audience. We are the influencers more than a brand that's cold, right? That they need the warm leads, they need the little ones to make the connection. And we should always remember that
Wow.
we are the ones that have the influence. Because let's say a company comes to you and say, I want your business,
Hmm.
versus someone who you've been referred to by someone in your network. I believe that you'll who would you give the consideration to? And you don't have to answer now on your podcast, but if a stranger comes to you, right, and say, I want you to use this, versus someone who you know come to you and say, I want you to use this, and it's the something you can actually benefit from this product. I mean, which one would you go with, right?
Yeah,
Who would you
of course.
consider?
Of course, someone that you trust. So that is an absolutely brilliant and important point that us being small, we essentially we build a stronger trust with our audience. We build a stronger relationship. So when we do recommend something or when we do have something to offer them, they do listen more because they do trust us. And
That's
that
right.
certainly, yeah, I certainly done that for myself, and I bought from people that I trust.
Absolutely. So then we leverage that trust with, we say to the bigger brand, like, we have an audience, we have the same audience that you do, but they might, okay, so two things. They trust us, so sponsor our event and let's reinforce that trust that they
Mm.
already may have or might not have with the audience, right? So come aboard and let's build those trust. So let's expand your audience, so let's fix a problem that you are having or whatever it is. We are the ones that that really we're the one who with the connections and with the influence, and we can just leverage that to help the bigger brands stay within the community, or help them to solve some other problem that they might be having. Don't know, but we have the power.
Wow. And I love that. And we 100% do. Thank you so much. This was absolutely brilliant. The information was so valuable. Guys, all the information for Roberta you'll find in the description wherever you're listening to this. Roberta, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
And we'll
you.
see you guys next week.
I think you said that again. I didn't hear you.
I was just saying, see you guys next week.
Oh, to the guys, thank you so much. And thank you so much. You are a powerful woman. You have a great audience, and all the women who are listening, they have their own power as well. So I thank you. I thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks.